Hi, I'm Rachel, and welcome to the beginning of my mid-July Am Reading Cruise 2025 edition. That went a little bit all over the place. Also, I'm filming on my phone, which is relatively unusual for me, and I'm in a guest room at my parents' house. We are about to embark very soon to go board the boat. We're going on a Carnival Pride cruise for 1 week to Bermuda. So, because of all of this, I figured that I would do different sorts of am reading videos this month, and maybe only two of them. Say that right now I am listening to the Goldie Standard by Simi Monheit on audiobook, and this is a lot of fun. It's the story of a grandmother trying to set up her granddaughter by setting up doctor's appointments for herself. And the narrator is just absolutely amazing and does wonderful accents, especially for this Ashkenazi senior citizen. So hopefully I will be finishing this pretty soon. And I also, have a bevy of other, audiobooks, physical book, and ebooks. And I also am bringing along this literary journal. I'm just about to start reading from Boulevard. For most of my Am Reading videos, I start them by reading one short story, but since I think I'll only be doing two Am Reading videos for July, I thought I'd bring this along with me and read these stories betwixt and between, like Bermuda B-roll. I kind of did something similar last year when I was at Rehoboth Beach and reading short stories and documenting that trip, so I thought that would be pretty exciting. And that's pretty much all I have to say right now. We're about to head out the door, but stay tuned as we go on this journey together. This was where the Key Bridge was hit by that boat. Just sailing right by it. Hello, and welcome to the special Am Reading Literary Journal part of this video. I am on my cruise and sitting in front of one of the specialty made towel animals that my deck attendant made, this one being a bear, to talk about the story Obscure Trivia of the Atlantic by A.J. Bermudez in Boulevard magazine. This feels apropos to start with, as I am on a cruise, and this story is about someone sort of living a life of luxury out of her means, or a short-lived vacation of luxury, perhaps, out of her means, the way I seem to be doing this week as well, although my situation is perhaps a little bit less dire. We are following Marta, who is going on this really lavish week-long vacation to the Antarctic with a bunch of really over-the-top, like insufferable, rich, snobby people. And we learn in little bits and pieces, and ultimately that she is on the run. She's about to enter the criminal justice system, and she is working, it seems like, maybe in a janitorial position at a bank, or at least she has access to the account number of a well-to-do client that she finds on the CEO's desk, and she uses it to go take this vacation that's kind of crazy, out of the ordinary, first class, and doing this sort of like camp type experience with all of these snobby people. They're ice climbing down into snow that's never been touched. They're out together at the South Pole, exchanging secrets. And one of them is, over the top animal rights activist who actually started as a hunter. A wild game crazy hunter. I think the author was having a bunch of fun with this, but it was an interesting way to look at this character who came from a far less well-to-do lifestyle, and we get a little bit of snippets into who this person really is, but the vacation is a way for her to, I don't know, just live on the wild side, something like just completely out of this world type of experience. And that's actually where she admits to her crime during one of these sessions where they're putting it all out on the table. And, her outlandish secret suddenly doesn't sound as outlandish, except, of course, that luckily she tells it near the end of the vacation, because she's told, she will be arrested when she goes home. And this trip to the Antarctic becomes like her party game about like the crazy, unusual things she'd ever done in her life. But, just being on this cruise and so out of my ordinary life really colored the way I think I looked at this story.
Wasn't everybody. Listen, guys, you gotta match my energy. When I say one, you say two, and on three, we set wind on three. Here we go. 1, 1, 3. Here we go. Remember, get your cameras out. Capture the moment, all right? Get your pictures, your videos.
This next short story is about an exterminator dealing with ants, so I thought an aardvark would be a good and apropos towel animal to put on display for 200 Kinds of Poison by David Crouse. This is just luck on my part that this combo goes together. And in fact, this story is told in second person, a you, and the way that you's job was described, ultimately we learn it's a man, but, in the beginning you don't know. But the job sounds like, maybe being in a maid service or, something like that, cleaning up after people's garbage and unmentionables. And of course, my bias right now of being in this cruise is every day I have the deck attendant coming in and having to, move around my crap and make the bed and all of that. So that's my bias. But ultimately, we learn at least the central-ish part of the story is he is acting as an ant exterminator. And this one client, in fact, seems a lot different than sort of the superfluous examples in the beginning that seem like it's all based around how, messy people are in their lives. But this one client is rather clean, even though she has this ant infestation that takes some doing to get rid of. And you can tell he has some resentment about that. And then we go into backstory about how he had been bullied and ridiculed and mocked as a child, and it seems like a class issue. And I don't know. I feel like there's just too much going on in this story, so it just was difficult to, grasp onto the central themes and the central plot. Was it about this extermination case, or, the fact that he couldn't get out of his head about the past and went to a baseball game with kids and started, trying to, cause trouble there, or, run his mouth or something like that? I don't know. I feel a little overextended here. Maybe the 200 types of poison are going in too many directions, but that's where I stand with this one. I've picked the white elephant in the room for this one because this story, Defriending by Giles Harvey, has a lot of commentary in it, or a little bit of commentary in it, in this story taking place around the 2016 election, about white liberals not quite getting exactly what was going to happen and how dangerous Trump was going to be to the country. But anyway, that's kind of a relatively small part of this story, which is about friendship and reputation and relationships, a lot of platonic relationships, even between couples, where, the focus isn't the romantic relationship between the couples. There's a lot of names. It took me a little while to get involved in it, but Ben is our main character. He is in a romantic relationship, or a couple with Allie. He works with Ellie, who's in a romantic relationship with David. They work in a magazine. It seems to be sort of a liberal magazine, but is getting a little flack for maybe being a little geriatric and white male-centered in their views as well. And he's kind of clinging to her. He's obviously has a bit of a thing for her, idolizes her a bit. She's a bit higher on the food chain than him, and he's hoping he'll bring her into sort of a greater career. And so he's looking for ways maybe to interact with her more, and somehow they get roped kind of against his will in a way into this like couples relationship, platonic relationship, him and Allie and her and David. And they find out they have another person in common, this person named Sarah, who is now a friend of Ben and Allie's, but and her new boyfriend Tim. They're these sort of perennial academics who, unlike these other people who have, grown-up jobs, and they're more insufferably like on the far left, I think, or maybe that's my own bias about what they say about them. But yeah, there's a lot of sort of toxicity and gossip in these relationships, and obviously I think Allie in particular is getting off by thinking, we're, mocking our old friends and joining these new friends, and here we have Ben, who secretly actually is like more into Ellie than into this relationship, platonic relationship couple thing that they're doing. Ellie does leave the company, and with that, they, Ellie and their couples friendships in general, take a bit of a step back, and, they don't see each other for a while. And we have Allie and Ben are on the outs and oh, nobody's been talking to us for a while. And of course, at the end of the story, they randomly run into the four other people, who have reconnected themselves, I guess, because, Ellie and they had been in school together, yada yada. And so, despite all of the gossip from before about who's in and who's out, it seems like at the end of the day, and Ben are on the outs, which almost seems like Schadenfreude, because they're the couple that was leveraging like this gossip and trying to exchange one friend group for another friend group. I thought it was interesting in that way, just about the toxicity, and maybe a reminder that maybe relationships shouldn't be built out of such behaviors. That, I am concluding my reading for Boulevard Literary Journal for this cruise and for July.
I feel like people need to actually take the words of things seriously. Then my friend is big on like this stuff. Oh, I read some of these. Like my friend loved that. I feel like I had one of those books about like a picture getting vandalized or something at an art show.
And now for the Fool books. I have this Platypus to help me talk about the Goldie Standard by Simi Monheit, which I had, begun at the beginning of this vlog. Now I have finished listening to it, and it was an enjoyable book. Definitely one that was great to do on audio because the narrator just could do all of the great, wonderful accents. The main character is, she's a Holocaust survivor, but she's in her 90s at this point and just has the really thick Yiddish American sort of accent, and just is one of those kind of stereotypically comic characters, but it's just so wonderfully done that it's just so engaging. And so she's nearing the end of her life. You can tell. I like the way that they dealt with dementia. In a way, it's that's why they'd go back and forth and go to other parts of her life and discuss her backstory. And it fit in well with the fact that, her mind wasn't staying in one place, even as other people in her family, were trying to assess the situation. And the situation, the conceit in the beginning is that she sets up appointments with doctors so that she can try to set her granddaughter up with one. But then it turns out that, she actually does have a serious condition with cancer. But they don't really go into the treatment that much. I guess that's not the point of this book. I kind of thought it would be. This is another book where there's a lot going on, and I debate always about that. Am I just saying I don't like the complexity of real life and fiction? But no, I thought for a degree it would be more focused on the family. They had some drama around, the aunt who was the primary caretaker, but then the granddaughter was getting more involved because she had a science background and was a researcher and involved with the hospital. And then she wasn't able to set her granddaughter Maxie up with, the Jewish doctor she wanted, but Maxie actually starts getting together with, this sort of art photography non-Jewish character who comes into the picture. And so we get into, it's always brewing in the background that, she wants her family to remain Jewish, and is just very ingrained in, the idea of, the outside world has always tried to hurt us, so we have to always stick with our own. And then it kind of comes into a fever pitch at the very end when, as I guess her life is ending, Maxie wants to tell her the truth about the relationship she's in. And so we get a lot deeper into sort of those Jewish thoughts, although, see, there's already too much going on in this novel. And then, Goldie even has this brief affair with this fellow person at her nursing home, and it's almost like a Victorian conceit because, he then leaves her a fair bit of money, and that, becomes something to tie up with her personality about what she wants to leave behind as a legacy. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. I really enjoyed the atmosphere of it. You think, it was good. It was overall good, and I think it ended in a good place, but But with trepidation, I kind of wish the story were a little more centered, even though part of me also wishes to embrace fiction that, realizes, just like real life, real life can be complicated. There's so much going on, but then again, fiction has to, you kind of streamline a fair bit with, the message and the story it wants to convey.
Nicely done, nicely done. Now, you can say 1, 2, 3, you can pick it up. 3, and just pick it up, and before pick up, just blow on it. Excuse me, not there, here. You just blow here, not there. Put it inside. You do one thing. You can, if you want, you can just put this one like this. Then say 1, 2, 3. Blow on it. Yes, this here, blow here. Right. Blow on it. Just put it out. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that is your car. Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
I have this polar bear, I think, and a frog to talk about the final book I'll be finishing on the cruise, All the Water in the World by Eiren Caffall, which is my macabre sense of humor I talked about in another video, because this is a book about, dystopia and seeing the horrors of climate change through these horrible storms that basically wipe away islands and cities, and society is collapsing, and we have terms as like the world that was and the world that is. And anyway, I thought it would be more about a community that had the ability to make active decisions about what artifacts to bring out of the museum where they're all living before the storm, the final storm, the worst storm hits, and what they were going to bring to a new community. And it was going to talk about like what they wanted to preserve about human culture, but that's not really what this was about. We have this narrator. She's like a mid-teenager named Noni, short for Nora. She's living with her father and her sister Bix, and then some other members of their community that they lived in the Natural History Museum in New York. Now they're calling it Amen. And there's it's a ruminative book. It goes back in time. It's supposed to be like a log book of Noni writing about her experiences. And she wrote about she was learning a lot about science and animals and history too. There's a lot of emphasis put on different cultural artifacts in the museum and sort of learning about them on the way. But the major thing they're able to save in the final storm is this canoe used by South American peoples to, escape as the building is literally being torn from under them, to get to Noni's mother's farm. And they're like, taking this long route through, I guess, what was New York State to get to the farm. And it talks about, and first they need to paddle out, and there's still storms coming. And it talks about the people they meet along the way, the friendships, and also the dangers of people. And there's a lot of emphasis put on, what we owe each other, and the utopias that do and don't work, and the types of things people justify in hurting each other. I don't know, there was a quality to this that I found a little grating, sort of preachy and self-righteous in a way. I don't know. I'll have to think about this a little bit more. But it definitely wasn't quite the feel I thought it would be, but it's not quite high-octane escape novel for an apocalypse either. It does think about these issues about, environmental change and human society in a more ruminative sense. Post-apocalyptic novel can be misunderstood. I think it's seen as something that's so dire and pessimistic, but I think the whole point is trying to be optimistic about the future and seeing the worst-case scenarios feel like they're pretty forthcoming and ominously close in the future, and a weird thing to think about when you're on a cruise ship in the Atlantic. But you take these realities and think, well, what's a way we can still survive and find companionship even in the worst circumstances? So I feel like that book is definitely in this vein. Hello, it's my face back again in my normal location, back from my vacation, slowly getting acclimated, filming on my regular camera. Not sure that'll actually track for all of you, except that probably it's a little less wobbly because it's not handheld. But anyway, I think one thing I forgot to do at the beginning of the video that I filmed like a week ago now is say that my June literary newsletter, complete with literary news that caught my fancy, snippets of my book reviews that I wrote, a book pick and book quote, all of that is listed in my literary newsletter down below. And to wrap up the reading quotient of this Am Reading video, I am now in the middle of listening to The Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare, which is a sequel novel, I think in her Castellane series, and I really enjoyed The Swordcatcher when I first listened to it a couple of years ago, and I'm enjoying this one too, slowly getting reacclimated to her large cast of characters in this secondary world. It's a lot of political intrigue and a lot of Jewish influence to one of the marginalized cultures. So yeah, my big problem now is actually finding sustained time again to be able to finish this hefty one, and I got plenty of other books I want to read and listen to behind this one. But my cruise time is over. I did definitely get some time to read. I think, as you could tell, maybe not as much as I hoped, but I also enjoyed a fair amount of the programming that the cruise offered. Although ultimately I think what I would have preferred, in making this trip even more fun would be to have more time in Bermuda off exploring there, which would give me less reading time, but certainly it was incredible to explore somewhere new and somewhere so beautiful, and I enjoyed what we did there in port. And I think my family really enjoyed it too. This is not our usual type of vacation, but I think it was a fun, unique time to spend together for a week. I had my birthday, my brother-in-law also had his birthday on the ship, so it was kind of extra special. And now I have to reface reality, and probably going to get this up even a little later than I hoped as I scramble to, get back into the work world and the, cleaning the condo world. It was like a frenzied whirlwind trying to get out of here in time. Anyway, expect me back here on this channel in the near future with an author's answer video. It's part of a series, an AuthorTube series. I do questions put out by J.D. Archer, an AuthorTuber, and his writing group. Stay tuned for that. I hope you are all enjoying your reading and finding great time to relax on vacation, whether reading is involved in that or not. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Se llama el apellido Vitorino, y en la jura de bandera de muchachos